Today's Sunshine Note is titled, He Can't Disown Himself. If we are faithless, He will remain faithful, for He cannot disown Himself. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13. For a time during my high school sophomore year, I felt that ending my own life would be a relief. I was depressed, dejected, hopeless, and tired of living. I had grown tired of God and made deliberate decisions against Him to let Him know I didn't want to live for Him anymore. Life became darker and darker until finally one night, my hopelessness reached an all-time low. I was ready for the end. When I got home well after midnight, my early-to-bed mom was waiting up for me. She said she'd been impressed to do so. At that, I broke down and spilled everything. She listened quietly until I was finished. Then she told me about Jake. Jake, a sweet joy of a yellow Labrador, had been our dog for all my life. My parents had bought him as a puppy just before Mom became pregnant with me. They'd often walk in the meadows together, Jake running off to investigate things, returning periodically to check on Mom. One day as they walked, Mom said she suddenly felt two strong hands pushed down on her shoulders. She stopped dead in her tracks and looked down at a huge rattlesnake coiled where her next step would have been. As she stared in horror, Jake bounded toward her. She was terrified he would run into the snake, causing it to strike her. But a mysterious thing happened. Instead of coming to her side as usual, Jake stopped short, looking high above Mom's head, wagging his tail at something unseen, and ran off. She believes Jake saw her guardian angel, whose hands had stopped her in her tracks. She told me the story that night to assure me that God had a purpose for my life, that He had been directly involved in making sure I was born. I had never heard anything like this before, but it filled me with a brand new feeling of hope and purpose that has never left me since. What amazes me the most, looking back, is that though I wasn't being faithful to God in the slightest, He orchestrated circumstances to save me. He was still faithful to me. Today's verse has become one of my favorite because it gives us an idea of just how loyal God is to us. Even if we leave Him completely, He will remain faithful to us. Why? Because He can't disown Himself. This means being faithful to us is part of who He is. You can't separate it from Him. It's a guarantee. Whether you feel it or not, God is faithful to you. May God bless you today.